Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. We're back again on our pandemic projects, and this one is a special request. I wasn't planning to get to this one for some time, but Chris, who's been a kind of loyal viewer for a long time, asked me if I could do this one this week. I guess he's got one or whatever, and as a favor to him, I'm going to go ahead and do that, but we're all going to learn from this one. I haven't done this one before. This is the Luxor. It's the Salmon Mer, and it's for saltwater fishing or for salmon fishing. It's a huge reel, one of the biggest ones that I've got, for sure. And it was previewed probably, I don't know, 3, 4, 5, 6 months ago. It was sometime over the summer when I was at a flea market and had the opportunity to converse with a vendor. I was interested in one reel, and he went in the back and pulled out this reel and said, "What do you are you interested in both of them?" And then, of course, I said yes. And I paid $35 for a pair. So not even sure what this thing is worth these days, but it kind of brought me back to my childhood. And then I went online to Orca. I'm a member, Old Reel Collectors Association, because I needed the schematic. I've never done one of these reels. And I got the whole manual, which includes the schematic. I broke the schematic out by myself. But if you have a chance and you're interested in old reels, certainly go check out Orca's site. It's relatively inexpensive from a membership standpoint, and you have access to a lot of great stuff. So what I did learn on this was a couple other things. This was the 1959 model, and it seems to match up with what I have. And so we know reel was 50s, early 60s. I think in the 60s it may have become Crack as opposed to Luxor as the manufacturer. This tells us, of all things, I can see this, 740 yards of 7.5-pound nylon monofilament, or 250 yards of 17. So I'm not sure who would use 7.5-pound monofilament, but they would. The gear ratio is 3.25 to 1. The weight is 29 ounces, which is almost 2 pounds. The retrieve is 31 inches per crank. Kind of big, interesting information there. Of course, you have the schematic, and we're going to go follow that to make sure that we get it right. I did learn that this reel is considered the more expensive one because it has the collapsible handle. On the lesser models, it had a standard straight handle, and I also understand there'll be a bearing under here. And under that bearing there, on the lesser models, there was a bushing. So we'll see about that. But before we get too much further along, I want to take the opportunity to thank the first responders, the essential personnel, law enforcement, EMTs, hospital workers, and nurses, and everybody who's got a role to play in keeping us safe during the pandemic. It really is appreciated. Everything you do is appreciated, and we need to do our part too in terms of the masks and the like. You know, every day I just run out of things to say about the folks that are out there, teachers, postal employees, the Amazon drivers and FedEx and UPS and the like that are delivering us goods because we don't want to go out to the malls and the like, and food stores as well, and the folks that are delivering there too. All right, so this one is just interesting, and if you're getting bored with this, go ahead and skip ahead to where I start to take the thing apart. But here's one thing I just found totally interesting. It says, this is in the manual now, when returning from fishing, remove the spool of the reel, unwind about twice the nylon length used for casting, clean the nylon with a clean rag dipped in detergent or gasoline, clean the spool with kerosene and wipe lightly, rewind the nylon. Thus cared for, nylon does not stick and casts longer. Clean reel with kerosene using a paintbrush and wipe lightly. And then it goes into some of the other stuff about the reel. But, we've said, I guess the modern day equivalent may be a penetrating oil like a WD-40, or in this case, this is Luby. It's just an Ace Hardware product. There's multiple types out there, liquid wrench and the like. And I've said from time to time, hose it down with fresh water and then hit it with a penetrating oil or a drying agent to kind of take up the salt and the like, wash it off good thoroughly, and it'll last you a long time. Well, all the way back pre-1960, at least in that manual, they were telling you pretty much to do the same thing with what was their equivalent of the day. All right, now we'll get started. Okay, thanks are out of the way. You'll notice I'm wearing a protective glove on my hand. I use the bottom of a milk jug for a parts tray, and this one should get interesting. I noticed on the tensioner nut that there is a screw here, and if I look at the assembly up top here, if you're having a problem with that nut, there's a spring, a collar, and a nut cap inside there. You don't need to take that apart. If something was wrong with it, you would, but all of that is self-contained. Next up then is the spool. That manual went on to say everything here is an anodized light alloy. So it should be corrosion resistant. And we can tell just by looking at this over time. You know, we're almost 60 years into this now, and this reel is still in nice condition. Okay, we're going to remove the bottom. From what I can see there, we're going to remove the bottom. There'll be an axle shaft attachment. We'll take the axle shaft off. It looks like there's 3 screws holding this plate on, and then we'll see how you get the rotor off. If you get the rotor off, you got to get the rotor off somehow, and service that. All right, the handle backs off clockwise direction. And then we have this collar, which also backs off in a clockwise direction. That's for the collapsible handle. You tighten it almost. You can find these things on a lot of different reels. Daiwa comes to mind, although this is a one piece. And I'm putting them, as you noticed, into my parts tray. All right, 3 screws here. On an old reels, put a little penetrating oil on these. We're never quite sure. This one seems like it's oiled pretty well. We'll put a little penetrating oil on there. That'll help you work these screws out. Last thing you want to do on a reel like this is break off a screw. And in that case, you're in trouble. All right, this one I'm noticing that it does have a little cut going under the rotor there, so that's where I'm going to mark the top of this. It's a triangular pattern, so I guess you could put them on in the wrong direction. For example, it says Luxor over to the side here. It's easy enough to think that maybe that belongs up top where you could read it. So take pictures along the way. That's another one of the tips that I frequently tell everybody. And as I'm doing this, I'm putting these into my parts tray in one pile. I want to make sure all of these screws are the same size. And quite honestly, I've never done this reel. Chris has kind of twisted my arm to do it. And I'm as curious as everybody else is. It's kind of like Christmas morning here. We're going to open this up and see what we got inside. Although I got a little bit of an idea because of the schematic here. All right, we should be able to remove that. What we got inside is a lot of grease. I don't think that's too unusual. I don't know when the last time this reel was fished. This grease is pretty heavy. All right, what I want to make sure of before I remove this gear is that the clicker is in the off position. So flip that over here. This is in French, so I'm not quite sure if it's right. This is an oil port here. Sometimes those hold the main gear in, so I'm just going to back it off a little bit. We'll see. Nope, the main gear can come out of that, so I'm just going to leave it like that. Pull that main gear out. It's one big main gear, but it's in nice condition. It looks like it's a brass type of a gear. There's a sleeve on here. Don't lose that sleeve. And that's going to ride in this, which is the carrier for the ups and downs. This one is in very, very greasy condition. That's why I wear a glove here. You can probably already see that I've got the grease on my hand already. Wow. I think they used the whole can of grease on this. But we're going to go get that out of there, as much of it as we can. And again, if you, you're looking over my shoulder here in terms of how I do my day-to-day work in the shop. I don't stop it. I don't edit it. I don't do any of that stuff. So if you want to see the next piece, don't be shy. You can skip right ahead there. But I'm going to take the time here to grease this, get rid of this grease, and who knows, maybe we'll find something that I come upon that you'll skip out of and say, gee, I wish I had heard that somewhere. All right, we're going to use a little bit of the penetrating oil. We should be able to just finish that cleaning now. That's a beautiful gear. And again, just be aware there is a collar on here. I'm not going to play around with that, but it's there. And I'm going to leave it on there. But if you lose that, your stud won't operate properly in that groove there. All right, it's a nice, beautiful gear. I'm just going to take a hard bristle brush, just clean out the teeth. You can use a toothbrush. In this case, this just came from a set that had a wire brush, a brass brush, and a bristle brush, so I'm using that. And I'm kind of scraping this to me, and I also have a paper towel under me so that if I do knock any large chunks or anything out of there, that it lands on my paper towel, not on my board, so that I don't have to worry about it being picked up by something else. All right, this side is clean. I'm going to let a sleeping dog lie here. If you're looking on how to reassemble this click mechanism, good luck. I'm not changing that, but it looks like it's relatively simple. I'm kind of having fun with you, but there is a spring that hooks onto the stud here, and it hooks underneath on the back of this anti-reverse dog. I do want to make sure that that operates nicely, so I'm going to use my penetrating oil to get in there, clean out any dirt, and just work it in there a couple of times. And then I want to leave it in the off position, because when I go to reinstall that main gear, which I'm going to do right now, I'm going to make sure that it's off so that I don't have an issue trying to merge into the teeth in the back here. Okay, we've cleaned all of that off. If this was a little bit sticky, if you felt that there was some grease on there, go ahead and use a very light, fine 4/0 steel wool just to clean off that shaft before you reinstall. And then I'm going to use fishing reel grease. I'm going to use Penn's Precision Reel Grease. And I'm just going to put a light coating onto the shaft. I'm going to put a light coating onto that dog as well, just because. With the dog off, we can just simply reinsert. We can put our collar back by turning that. Now notice there's two sides of this collar. There's an indented side and there's a kind of a rubbery kind of thing there. The rubbery kind of thing I noticed on the way in was going in this direction. I'm going to put the handle on. And there's a washer, that's what I was just looking for. There's a washer that goes between that. And then the handle is going to hold everything in place. Now you could wait here at this point to put this assembly back on, because you're going to have to mesh. You're going to have to mesh that little stud with the hole in the slot, but we'll get there and eventually. This one, as I mentioned, apparently is the upper end of the line, because this does have a handle. It's similar to a Mitchell reel, where you can collapse the reel and handle and turn it in. I understand from that manual there that there were models made with a solid handle that didn't have that feature. All right, that's done. You give it a twirl just to make sure everything's good there. We'll come back and grease this as we get ready. All right, next up then is to remove that axle shaft. And this one was fun. I got a bunch of these wrenches. I think that it came from some kind of furniture installation thing or something. I'm not quite sure what it was. But whatever it was, I didn't have the heart to throw them out. And it turns out this one is going to fit the nut on the shaft there. This is a 9/32 wrench. Now this was made in France, so there's probably some kind of millimeter in there. It's not a 7, it's not an 8, it's between them. This one fits. And we're just going to work this through. And I'm just staring at a pile of grease in here. So let's just see if we can't clear some of that out, because look at that. That had to be a whole can of grease in here. Now, that's not unusual. The old timers, and I guess I'm getting in that age point where I guess I'm an old timer. The old timers would overload saltwater reels to kind of keep the water intrusion out. And it looks like that may or may not have been exactly what was done here. and I'm just using the box end of this. It seems to be working well. And I'll tell you, that looks like it's a testy little thing there. So just be aware of that as you take yours apart. That's where this one's going to be. Now I'm a little bit concerned because I'm looking at the schematic, and it says that there's a little kind of a washer underneath here, so I don't want to lose that. I see it there, so eventually all this is going to come out and we're going to be able to fish out the stuff from the bottom. And again, if I'm taking too long on this, skip right ahead there. That's kind of some of the fun of this. You just don't know what you're going to expect, so you need to be patient. Take your time. There's no rush on this. This is my reel. I don't get paid by the hour anyway. I'm just trying to work it through with my finger. Probably should have just done. It's right on the edge here, so we'll get it eventually. So patience and a sense of humor is always good too. Be able to laugh at yourself. I certainly do. You know, I started this a while ago, and some viewers expect perfection. Well, I've given up on that a long time ago. I just try to do my best. And if I make a mistake, I'll let you know, and you can all learn from our mistakes, for sure. All right, Chris, I hope I'm not boring you yet. This one's just got a lot of thread on it. But we will get there. And already I'm getting way too much grease on me here. Wow. So I often wonder, there's that little lock washer I was talking about. I often wonder, people did this in the plant. By today's standards, somebody would say, okay, there's a manufacturing process and you got to make 500,000 of these stupid things, and you need to have an efficient way to do that. And I can't imagine that there was somebody there that was small hands or not, just kind of working on it that way, putting it back on. But you know, I see how they put automobiles together today, and it has nothing to do with consideration for anybody taking it apart. It seems like it's only going in one direction, so maybe that was what was going on there. This should just pull up now, and it does. So here's your axle shaft. It's nice and clean. We got that out of the way. That's going to go into my parts tray so I don't lose that. And now we just got a whole pile of this dirt. So let's go ahead and wipe down the wrench that I just used, so we can go ahead and use that on the return trip. Put that in the bucket so I don't lose that or confuse that with the other ones. And here we go again. So I'm going to just spend some time now just getting these cleaned up here. So if you want to skip ahead, go right ahead. I won't be embarrassed or annoyed. What do I know? But it's a good time to tell you, if you like something like this, if you're enjoying this video, then please subscribe to my channel. And it kind of helps me, and it helps the channel, and helps me keep doing these things. If nothing else than just a kind word of encouragement that you are enjoying it. If you like the video, please like it. And if you have a reel like this or anything like Chris does, and you're interested in seeing how to service that reel, if I have it in the shop, I'll be happy to do that for you, and you can do it on your time too. Wow, this is just totally loaded here. I'm trying to get down to the collar here because I'm trying to figure out what that is that's holding this assembly on here. Okay, so as I mentioned, this is the first time I'm doing this reel. I just grabbed my pick and I'm running this, and this is spinning. I'm feeling it on the end of the pick here. So there's nothing in these holes. It must be an oil access hole is all I can figure. So the mystery must be up top under these 3 screws. Let's go ahead and remove this baffle. I'm just going to do the same thing I did with the other one, which is to lay the screws out so that I am sure that they're all the same size of the screw. Never assume. And then we'll see what's underneath here. Well, that was easy enough. So your whole piece comes off with those 3 screws. And then I would bet these 2 are what's going to hold the rest of it. So let's go ahead and pull these 2. Now if there was any resistance at all, what you would want to do is you would want to use the WD-40 again, but these are stainless screws. So beautiful pieces of artwork here for sure. Alright, now this whole thing I would think pulls up. There we go. Look at that. That's a massive bearing. Wow. Alright, so mystery solved. We'll be on to the next part. Look at that gunk. Alright, so if this was a customer, I'd charge him extra for Q-tips. I'm just kidding. You know, dirt is the enemy of reels, and so this is a good example. The old-timers trick was overload with the gear oil and greases to keep the water out. That's wonderful. The downside of that is if you don't take it out, this is what you get. And if you get this, you're in trouble. Because eventually this stuff dries. This looks like axle grease. I can't say what it is if anybody knows. It's just a kind of a coffee colored gunky kind of thing. And if you know what that is and want to let me know, that's wonderful. And again, if you're getting bored with me doing the dishes here, go right ahead and skip ahead. I'm pretty much on to just servicing the bearing at this point, and we will be reinstalling. Lost my little straw there. So modern reels are sealed better. If you look at the ads for the new Tsunamis or the Penn Spinfishers or the Daiwa series, the Saltists and the like, they all pretty much have recognized that there's an issue with salt water getting in and gumming things up. They haven't changed the alloys too much, but what they have done is they've put seals on these and the like. Alright, that's about as good as this case is going to get. One more piece here. And I'm going to plead ignorance on this. Somebody can go tell me you should take it off the whole way or something, but I'm not seeing how that collar comes off on the top of this bearing. It's just, I'm sure it's as simple as probably just popping it off. But on an old reel like this that I've never done, I can see that I can get in to service that ball bearing from both sides. I'm going to leave that. I'm just checking underneath here. Sometimes there's a set screw that'll hold it in place. I'm not seeing that set screw as I clean this up. So to the purists out there, I am going to plead ignorance, and I'm not going to go beyond the cleaning here to understand how this piece comes out, because I'm not seeing it. This whole assembly is moving at this point. It is possible that that is either threaded on, although I'm not seeing a thread. So I'm just going to leave that. Anybody wants to tell me how that, what the secret is there, I'm always learning. Thank you. Alright, let's just clean the back of this off. I'm scraping that down. I'll do the same thing with my brush. I'll work the collar off here. Same thing, get it into the paper towel. Wipe that down, get rid of that paper towel. Looks like there's a little scarring on this. Probably a stain more than anything else, but if you want to try that steel wool, go right ahead. This looks like a stainless pinion gear there. Yeah, that goes, the steel wool's just cleaning that right up. All right. And then I'm going to flood this bearing with oil. I'm going to use Realex as an oil. It's an aftermarket fishing reel oil. This is synthetic. I'm just going to flood it. Some folks would pack it again. I'm not sure it was packed to begin with. I'm not seeing any dry grease in there. But if you want to pack it with grease, go right ahead. I'm going to grab my fishing reel grease then. I'm going to get that onto our main drive here. And we'll go back and reinstall. So, I just had the opportunity, little nugget here. Luxor repair, authorized repair stations. I looked at the New Jersey area. There's not one of them that's still around. What does that tell us about the industry? And I also noticed here that what I'm doing has voided my warranty. So it says an unlimited warranty for any vice, I'm not quite sure, in making. If for any reason you discover that there's a defect, send it back immediately to our agent in your community or country, and it shall be repaired or exchanged, all those operations being free of charges to you. So you know this is an upper-ended reel, right? Attention, the only fact of trying to repair it yourself cancels the warranty. Oh, well, there you go. I guess if I did notice a material defect here right now, my warranty is canceled. Such is life. Gotta live life on the edge, right? You gotta take your chances. All right. Maybe I could have worked for one of their authorized repair services. I don't know. All right, there we go. Got grease onto the shaft, onto the teeth. Got oil in the bearing. Everything goes back in the slots. Press down. Push it in. Grab those two screws that we took out. Yeah, Chris, it's time to change the paper towel. I got you. There's a felt washer here, I'm noticing. I don't know, it's probably sound deadening, I'm thinking, more than anything else with the way that the rotor is going to go on here. I don't know if it requires oil or not. Usually when you find a felt washer, it does require oil, but I didn't see that in the maintenance instructions. This is another neat thing to recognize. So we're on a reel here that's 1950s, maybe early 1960s. It's following that blueprint almost exactly, so that was the 59 model. So one of the things that I'm noticing here, in today's modern spinning reels, they still use this as a way to hold the bearing in. You'll notice on some of those reels that all you have holding the bearing assembly down is the two screws that fit over the lip of the bearing, and that suffices as the hold down clamp. Sometimes you'll see a clamp. In this case, you won't see a clamp. And look at that, boy! I'll tell you what, no wonder that thing is so darn smooth. All right, we have three. I don't know if I can push this baffle out. I can. Good. So I just wanted to pull the baffle out, and it's a good thing I did. Guess what? More grease. All right, go get your cup of coffee. I'll be right back with the cleaning of this. You never know what's hiding in that grease, particularly up top here. The line in the water and everything gets in here because the spool is inside. It's a conventional rotor kind of spool set up here. If you don't know what's getting in there, that's a good reason to wear a glove like I do. Light spray of the penetrating oil. That's going to do two things. It's going to keep your trigger mechanism, which is here, fresh. That's going to get the rest of the grease off. And then I promise I will change my paper towel after this. Get the last of the uglies out of there. There's some on the back of this plate. And look at this. This plate is, like I said, 60 years old. And it's still a beautiful piece of machined equipment. Take that oil, a little bit on the spring here. That's going to move. Big amount on your trip assembly. Keep that nice and lubed there so that it doesn't get tight. Doesn't look like there's any way that this lines up particularly. Just looks like there's a ridge, so it's kind of got to go in square. And then I use this pin. You should need to rotate this until you find the hole. That's a good way to send through the pin. Come back over here then and do the same with the floating hole there. And again, anybody knows how that shaft comes off beyond the way that I took it off. The last piece that separates that so you could replace the bearing, please let me know. I was fortunate that this bearing is in good condition. I didn't have to replace the bearing, but almost made a mistake there. This is where taking pictures helps tremendously. If you're taking pictures, you would have realized that the screw was the wrong screw that I just put in that hole. If you didn't realize that and it didn't start to fit, you could go back to your pictures. Take a look and say, ah, there's where I made my mistake. And we're not lined up completely with that hole there. That's better. All right, one down, two to go. Just returning from a cup of coffee, you didn't miss anything of any consequence. So Chris, if you're stuck on how to get that pinion gear off, I didn't help you at all. Alright, that's that. And I'm going to give that a spin. Boy, that's a smooth spin, isn't it? Alright, let's get back to the rest of this reel then. So that's our axle shaft. Just going to clean that off. A little bit of dirt there. This is one of your drag washers on there. Grab my brush. Just a light coating on this because this is so well machined that if you put any more on there and you're going to put it through the hole here, all it's going to do is just pile off. Slide that down. Next up then is this crosswind arm block. I'm not sure what they would call it. I am sure what they would call it. All I have to do is look at my thing for part 57, and part 57 they call a cam plate for oscillating part. Okay, well there you go. See? Maybe I was lost in transaction. There's a rectangular piece to this. You want to make sure that as you go ahead and reassemble this, that you mount that into that rectangular part. Like that. And now I can see why I took forever getting that nut off, because that's quite a throw. on this. All right. That little serrated washer goes there. This nut goes on. I'm having seemingly a little bit better luck hand tightening this on the way down than I did taking it off. This shouldn't take me 10 minutes. So stay right where you are. Look at that. It's moving right along. And I just need to find that silly little wrench of mine. Put it in my parts tray so I knew where to find it. I can tighten this one down. There you go. I want to make sure that we get the grease onto the skids where this is going to ride. I want to make sure I get grease onto the face of this where the gear, main gear with that stud is going to go. Push this down so that you can get the grease on the other side. And if you didn't grease that pinion gear at this point, you can go ahead and do that now. Either way, works fine. Alright, big old main gear assembly now. Let's get a lot of grease in there. Not quite the amount that it came with, but let's make sure that we get a good amount of grease in here. That will spread. It's going to intersect with the smaller gear and it will spread it around. I'm going to put enough in there that it matters. And also onto the face of the gear here, because that's where your crosswind oscillating gear part thingy is going to go. Now I did notice there's an indentation here for here, so even if you took pictures, it can only fit one way. It's got that indentation for that top slot. And you want to do two things. You want to sight this so that you can get the crosswind stud into the block, and if that's off camera I'm going to apologize right away, but better to do it that way. And then give it a crank to make sure that's going up and down and there's no issues. Doesn't appear to be. Take those 3 side plate screws. And again, there's some holes here somewhere. There they are. I love that vacuum sound of the side plate of the reel coming together. So remember, if you have one of these and you're fishing that original nylon line, go make sure to strip off twice as much as you would normally cast with and clean it with a rag soaked in gasoline. And then use a paintbrush filled with kerosene to clear the rest of the reel. There you go. I think we would both be hard pressed to do that these days, but that's what we were told to do back then. Beautiful reel all around. Alright, there's only one more piece in my parts tray other than a tensioning knob, so let's go ahead and put that one in. I left the best screw for last here. This little screw down here, not an easy one for me to get in. Those of you that know me and little screws. Alright, so we got the 3 screws in. Now I did leave that anti-reverse click off, and surprisingly it said when casting leave that off and only put that engaged when you're landing the fish and you need help with the anti-reverse. So what you can learn from a manual. Alright, well we didn't wipe it down with kerosene, but all that other oils on there seemed to have done the trick. We're going to throw that back to the reverse side so we can make sure that we got that anti-reverse. We do. Wow, that's a nice reel. That's an odd bail. There you go. Alright. And then the spool service, so I don't think there's anything in this spool to speak of. There's one big drag washer in there. So there's a clip here. You want to find that juncture. Don't lose this thing because it's so old. You lose that and you're in trouble. Take our, there it is. That's your one drag washer. That's felt. Interesting. Clean out the bottom of this. Feels to be felt anyway. You put that back in. Looks like that would almost be a Jig Master or a Pen 60 washer. If you happen to break this one, it looks like the others probably could be a good substitute. Since it is felt, you want to soak it with oil. Go ahead and put that washer back on. Oops, I'm going to clean that up a little bit. And we can put this ring back into the drag stack. Spool on. Spool adjuster on. And that's it. There you go. That's your Luxor Salmon Mer, circa 1959. Beautiful reel. If I have the opportunity to work on these, yeah, now know how to do that. And I wish you best of luck in doing that. So everybody, please stay safe, stay well, stay fishing, stay watching, and we will get through this pandemic together. So this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Thank you for watching.